Hi guys, this is Dean. Today I'm going to talk to you about how to analyze industries. So there's a couple of ways you could analyze industries. A lot of YouTube channels, they usually talk about how to pick stocks, how to analyze just individual stocks, but they don't really talk about how to pick industries really. So I'm going to talk here about two models that you come across in finance exam. Specifically, I'm talking about the ACCA here. So if you're doing the ACCA exam, this is relevant to you too. And it's to look at industries that are quite niched down, right? We're not looking at overall sectors like financials or consumer discretionary, something like that. It is more like niched down to the industry level. So, as I said, we're going to look at how to pick the industry, not companies, right? Because usually people say, okay, how to pick a company within an industry. You look at these finance metrics or KPIs, but they don't really talk about how to choose that industry because there's a lot to choose from. And this would apply to any country as well. And we're going to look at it from the lens of somebody inside a company. So if you were a CFO or a CEO of a big group and you were considering to go to a new market, like for example, you're in a company in the US and you'd like to go to Japan and set up a factory there, and you're looking at, okay, so we're going to go into the Japanese market. So which industry should we try to enter to? And we have a choice of all the available industries to go and do business, right? Well, we could look at the models we're going to see now to choose that industry. So we're going to look at it as somebody inside a company wanting to set up a new business in a new industry. But this also works for an individual investor looking to invest in a company within choosing the best industry to invest in. Or it's usually when you're doing a macro top-down asset selection process, as in you're not just picking stocks bottom up. You're looking at the overall economy at the macro level, then you're drilling down to the sector, then to the industry, then to the company. So we're looking at this part right here, the industry level. Okay. So the first model is the Porter 5 Forces model, which is good because, again, there is a lot of day-to-day noise. There's a lot of information, short-term information thrown at you about industries, which doesn't look at the overall picture, right? This model goes back to the fundamentals, right? So the Porter 5 Force model, it is a model, so it says 5 in the name, so there's 5 things, but there's really only 4. So let's look at it. First, it's kind of like the way Porter says it, he says that it's to analyze the profitability of an industry. So the first item is the threat of new entrants. So that's the first thing from the list of 4 or 5. So what does Porter mean by threat of new entrants? Well, you have what's called barriers to entry. So you have, just like in Super Mario, you have obstacles you need to jump, right? That would be what they call the barrier to entry. So if I give you an example, a biotech company or pharmaceutical company. If you want to go into the pharmaceutical industry, it will cost, you will need a lab, you'll need, a research facility to create drugs and research and develop drugs. And that will cost you 3, 10, 20 million. So that's a barrier to entry. Not anybody can go up and set up their pharmaceutical company. Or it could be a license. So if you want to be a taxi driver, you'll need to get a taxi license. Or if you want to set up a pub or a bar, you will need an alcohol license, right? To sell alcohol. So that's a barrier to entry. So within the threat of new entrants, you have lots of barriers to entry for different industries. And what he means overall by threat of new entrants is how easy it is for somebody to come into that industry and set up shop and do business. If it is very easy, the threat of new entrants is very high. Okay. Second point, the power of suppliers. So the power of suppliers is, imagine if you have only one supplier because you need a very rare raw material for your process to build something or a service. Well, if you only have one supplier and one day he decides to stop doing business with you, so he doesn't sell his materials to you anymore, you will be in trouble. So he has all the power. You see, the power of suppliers is really, really high. On the opposite side, if there is lots of suppliers and they're all fighting to get your business, so they all cut down the prices and you have the choice, there is very, very little power of suppliers here, you see. It will be very easy for you to do business. And if the supplier is gone, you can go to another one. So the power would be very low. On the opposite side, which is number 3, it's the power of buyers. Again, if you only have one single customer who makes big orders for your business, and that's your whole business depends on that customer. So if that customer is gone, you'll be gone. So the power of buyers here is very high. When the power of buyers is very low, you have lots of little customers. You see? So if one of them goes and doesn't do business with you anymore, you have plenty of others, small customers. So they don't have much power over you. And the point number 4 is the threat of substitutes. So a substitute is not a competitive product, or an alternative on the market. What I mean by that is it's not iPhone versus Samsung Galaxy phones, right? They're both phones, smartphones, and they're both from competing companies, right? That's not a substitute. No. A substitute is something different that would solve the same problem. For example, if you were to go somewhere from Paris to Germany, Berlin, you could take a plane ticket to go there. So you see, the competitors here would be the airline company Air France versus the airline company Lufthansa. They could both provide you with the service to fly to Berlin. That's not the substitute. A substitute would be, well, instead of taking the plane, I'm going to drive by car. See, both answers your problem, but they're not competing products. You could take a boat, you could take a bus, you could take a train. You see, all of these things are different. They're not really competing things, but they're substitutes because they will solve the same issue. So threat of substitutes is point number 4, is really important because if customers can solve their problem a different way, the industry will be in danger. For example, a good example would be like Blockbuster. People, so consumers of movies used to go to Blockbusters and rent movies, and maybe there was another rental video shop. So these two are competing, Blockbuster and the local video renting shop. And then there was Netflix. which is not a like a video renting shop. It's an online streaming service, so it's not in the same industry at all. But it's a substitute. So see how that was a danger to that industry. So when it's really high, the threat of substitute, it's dangerous for the industry as well. And when you put all four together, you have in the middle the competition and rivalry, which is, this is why I say there's only four, because in the middle, what Porter says by competition and rivalry is how intense the fight is, how big is the contest, how intense is their blood on the streets. And that wraps everything up. When you add the four together, one is high, one is low, one is high, one is low, or low, 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 high, or high, high, low. In the middle, you get an overview of how intense the competition is in that industry. So when everything is low, it's highly profitable. When everything is high, it's obviously not very profitable, very competitive, and it's at the latest stage of the industry life cycle. So the industry life cycle is actually my next point. It's kind of like how, like the life cycle of an industry over time. You see, guys, I'm going back to the fundamentals here, and it's good for you to do that exercise when you're looking at an industry to work out the fundamentals of that industry. So industry life cycle, there's like 5 stages. So at the beginning, where it goes up, just the industry is born, something new. It's called the development stage. So there's nothing there. It's the Wild West. There's no competition. It's high differentiation, and innovation is key. All right. So there's not much happening at the development stage. The second stage is called the growth stage. So now you have more players coming into that industry. But there's still low competition, right? Everybody uses their differentiation in different ways. You see, this is not about a cost focus industry right now. It's still early stages. The buyers are weak. There's low entry, barriers to entry, low threat of new entrants. And then you have the third stage, which is where there's a big fight, which is called the shakeout. So in the shakeout stage, a lot of people get killed, basically. A lot of companies don't survive. This is where the market share starts to settle down. A lot of people get out, dies. A lot of companies die. And so the market share gets distributed with the starting to be the biggest players, right? Then you have the maturity. So that the fifth stage is the maturity, and the maturity is the peak has passed. Okay, it went up, development, growth, shakeout, and then maturity is when we've gone after the peak of the industry. So there, only the biggest players are left. The smaller guys are all dead. There is no growth anymore. There is extreme competition. It's all about cost focus now and making prices go down. And yeah, it's all about the gaining extra market share by baby steps, because the market share is now static. The market is no longer growing, right? It has passed its peak, which is then the last stage, which is the decline, right? Think about blockbusters and Netflix, where there's no longer any rental video shops, right? An industry can die, and that's a good example. So at the decline stage, this is where the big players, even them start to die out. It's all about cost focused again, and the competition is at its highest at the decline stage. So I hope this was helpful, guys, and there will be more videos on these topics, so please stick around. Thank you, guys.
First, with more than 100 regions covered, you can learn more with the Exotic Markets book available on Amazon. Second, you can explore sector and industry intelligence for different countries by going to pervasives.com. If you have an issue in relation to accounting and tax with foreign stocks, you can contact us by going to our website.